Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Saloni Krishnan and I am a lecturer at Royal Holloway. I run Neuroscience of Communication Development, or the ENCODE lab at Royal Holloway. I study how our brains are wired to help us speak or make music, and what happens when things go wrong. The reason I'm really interested in this is because for most of us, speaking seems absolutely effortless. It's just something we do. We don't even think about it, but it's also primarily the way we communicate what we think about the world, but also understand what other people's opinions are. And for example, it's a really powerful mechanism to sort of think about your feelings, think about how you learn information, and so on. But a surprisingly large proportion of children, so about 7% or 2 children in every classroom, actually struggle to learn their native language, which means they have trouble learning the grammar of the language, the vocabulary in their language. And this isn't for an obvious reason. It's not because they have hearing loss that's gone untreated, or because they have an obvious sort of neurological stroke or anything of that nature. So this disorder is called Developmental Language Disorder, and you probably haven't heard of Developmental Language Disorder or DLD, despite how common it is. You may have heard of some of the disorders it co-occurs with, like autism or ADHD or dyslexia. One of the trouble with language disorders is that it's actually a hidden difficulty. And what I mean by this is it's very easy for people to kind of miss the fact that there's an underlying language problem. So if someone with a language problem who can't understand instructions very well is being instructed by their teacher to do something, they might not do it, and the teacher would actually probably think, what a naughty child, and this child isn't listening to me. So language disorder actually put an individual at quite a high risk for poor academic achievement, because language feeds quite strongly into literacy. They also put individuals at risk for social and behavioral problems. They have an impact on well-being. I'm working on why these children struggle to learn to speak and how we might be able to help. One idea is that children struggle to learn sequences that form the very basis of language. So for example, if you took a word and you jumbled up sounds, so you made can, knack, for instance, that wouldn't make sense. And in fact, even the sentences we use, word order is very important. So for example, if I give you the sentence, the girl kissed the bear, that makes total sense in the context of the picture you're looking at. But if I say the bear kissed the girl, that doesn't convey the same meaning, and what you might be expecting is actually for some kind of animation and the bear to come to life and to kiss the girl. This particular theory about sequences suggests that the parts of the brain that are responsible for helping us learn sequences and habits, so structures like the caudate nucleus and the putamen embedded deep in the brain, as well as areas like the left inferior frontal gyrus, are dysfunctional. In my research, I'm now testing this theory in a large group of children, so watch this space for results. So apart from that, one of the other things I found really interesting about language is that we're always driven to learn words, and this is really right from infancy. So for example, if you read in a book the sentence, John wore a bemble on his wrist, you're probably able to make quite a good guess at what a bemble is, despite the fact that you've probably never heard that word before. It's a completely made-up word. One of the exciting things, though, for us, as researchers have found, is that when you do this, when you extract meaning from a word you didn't know, you find brain activity in regions that in the ventral striatum, and these regions typically code for things like pleasure, so eating an ice cream on a hot summer's day, or winning the lottery and getting loads of money. But in this case, this region is being activated by actually learning the meaning of a word, which suggests that information, that meaning, is actually really valuable to us. We don't know if people with reading and language disorders experience the same kind of buzz from learning, and this might affect their language learning. And we certainly need to understand this in terms of thinking about how we design language training for these groups. So I'm currently testing these ideas in 10 to 18-year-olds at Royal Holloway. I use both MRI, so I have children and adolescents going to the scanner, as well as using online assessments of behavior, so trying to understand how those with language disorders and typically developing adolescents value words, how they sort of search for information, and so on. So that's a little bit about my research. I am always looking for keen students to join my lab, doing undergraduate projects or working in the lab as undergraduate research assistants. There are currently 2 undergraduate research assistants in the lab, and they're really great. So yeah, please do get in touch if you're interested in this sort of research. In terms of teaching, I'm the course coordinator for one of the first year courses. This used to be called Introduction to Abnormal Psychology. It's now called Introduction to Mental Health and Wellbeing. And on this course, what we pay attention to is thinking about what a psychological disorder is, whether we need to label disorders as being disorders, and how research helps us understand psychological disorders. My colleagues who teach on this course offer different perspectives on psychological disorders, so things like the cognitive approach, the behavioral approach, the psychodynamic approach, and how these particular approaches can help you think about the diagnosis and treatment of psychological disorders. So I think it's a really exciting course. So really sure we'll cross paths soon, but in the meantime, thanks so much for choosing Royal Holloway, and we're really looking forward to having you.